Nikola Tesla's view of the universe was never confined to the laboratory or the workshop, but extended into a philosophical reflection on the nature of energy, matter, and the human spirit. He believed that the universe was a vast symphony of vibrations, where every particle, every atom, and every form of life resonated within a grand cosmic field of energy. For Tesla, electricity was not merely a technical force to be harnessed for machines, but a fundamental expression of the underlying order of existence. He often spoke of the world in terms of frequency and vibration, suggesting that if one could understand the secrets of energy and frequency, one could understand the hidden fabric of reality itself. Tesla's philosophy revolved around the idea that human progress depended on aligning with these universal laws of energy. He saw himself not simply as an inventor, but as a discoverer of principles that had always existed, waiting to be revealed. Unlike many engineers of his time who thought in terms of immediate applications or profit, Tesla considered invention to be a form of communion with the universe. Each breakthrough was not simply a new device, but a revelation about the way nature operates. His alternating current system, for example, was not only a practical solution for distributing power across great distances, but also a reflection of the rhythm of the cosmos, oscillation, polarity, balance. To him, AC was as much a philosophical truth as it was an engineering triumph. Tesla also saw imagination as the most powerful tool of the human mind. He cultivated a philosophy of visualization in which he could build machines in his mind, run them, test them, and perfect them before ever committing them to paper or metal. This mental discipline was not only a practical technique, but a philosophical stance on the relationship between thought and reality. He believed that the human mind had access to the same universal currents that animate matter and energy, and that by tuning one's consciousness, one could grasp truths that lay beyond the reach of ordinary perception. In this way, Tesla viewed invention as a spiritual act as much as a scientific one, a manifestation of inner vision into outer form. For Tesla, progress was synonymous with the liberation of humanity from drudgery and suffering through the application of energy. He envisioned a world where machines, powered by free and limitless energy drawn from the natural environment, would perform labor, leaving humans free to cultivate higher pursuits of the mind and spirit. His idea of wireless power transmission was not just a technological dream, but a moral imperative. If energy could be transmitted freely across the globe, then poverty and inequality could be eliminated. He often spoke of the Earth itself as a conductor, a reservoir of energy waiting to be tapped for the benefit of all. His great unfinished project, the Wardenclyffe Tower, symbolized this philosophy, a dream of universal empowerment through the sharing of energy. Tesla's philosophy extended into his reflections on war and peace. He despised the waste of human life and resources that war represented, and he proposed technologies that might render war obsolete. He imagined directed energy weapons not as tools of domination, but as deterrents, systems so overwhelming that no nation would dare to attack another. Yet beneath this practical suggestion lay a deeper conviction that humanity must evolve beyond tribal conflict and recognize its shared destiny. For Tesla, the true enemy was not another nation, but ignorance, short-sightedness, and the failure to align human civilization with the natural laws of the universe. Tesla's solitude played a key role in shaping his philosophy. He lived much of his life apart from others, devoting his energy entirely to his work and inner visions. He believed that solitude was essential for creativity,
and that only by withdrawing from distractions one could hear the subtle music of the cosmos. To him, invention required purity of thought, untainted by the noise of society. Yet this solitude was not merely personal preference, it was an expression of his belief that the greatest truths reveal themselves in silence, in the quiet tuning of one's mind to the universal frequencies that underlie all existence. Tesla also reflected on the nature of humanity itself. He saw human beings as receivers, not unlike radios attuned to universal frequencies of thought and inspiration. Just as a radio picks up signals from the ether, Tesla believed that human consciousness could receive insights from a universal reservoir of knowledge. This explained for him the phenomenon of sudden inspiration or discovery that appeared simultaneously in different minds around the world. It was not coincidence, but evidence of a shared connection to the same cosmic source. In this view, genius was less about personal brilliance and more about the ability to tune one's mind to the right frequency of truth.
Tesla's ethics were rooted in his belief in service to humanity. Unlike many contemporaries who sought wealth or recognition, Tesla was indifferent to material reward. He considered money to be secondary, even corrupting, when compared to the responsibility of improving human life. His refusal to exploit his patents for maximum profit stemmed from this philosophy. For Tesla, to withhold a discovery for personal gain would be to betray the cosmic trust of invention. Knowledge and energy belonged to all humanity, and the inventor's role was to act as a channel, not an owner. This selfless philosophy often left him destitute, but it also set him apart as a figure whose work was animated by ideals rather than by commerce. Tesla also entertained metaphysical questions about life, death, and the soul. He speculated that human beings were animated by subtle energies that continued beyond the decay of the body. While he did not align himself with conventional religion, he was deeply spiritual in his conviction that the universe was ordered and intelligent. He once suggested that the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it would make greater progress in one decade than in all previous centuries. For Tesla, consciousness itself was part of the grand field of energy, and death was merely a transition of the vibrational state of the individual into the wider continuum. Tesla's philosophy of science also included a critique of human institutions. He lamented that short-sighted investors and governments hindered true progress by prioritizing profit over vision. In his mind, the proper role of science was not to serve the marketplace, but to serve humanity's evolution. He often remarked that the future would belong not to those who amassed wealth, but to those who unlocked the hidden energies of nature for the common good. His frustration with financiers like J.P. Morgan was not just personal disappointment, but philosophical opposition to a worldview that reduced invention to commerce. For Tesla, invention was sacred, a duty to humanity, and to confine it to the logic of profit was a desecration. Tesla also advanced a philosophy of harmony with nature. He argued that humans should live in balance with the Earth's resources and tap into its renewable energies rather than exhaust its finite materials. His dream of wireless energy was not only about efficiency, but also about ecological balance, for it eliminated the need for burning fuel or consuming resources. In this sense, Tesla anticipated later ecological philosophies, envisioning a civilization powered by clean, limitless energy in tune with the rhythms of the planet. His own lifestyle, vegetarian and ascetic, reflected this harmony. He saw violence against animals as unnecessary and destructive, and he believed that compassion extended beyond the human species to all forms of life. Tesla's philosophy can also be read as a meditation on time and destiny. He believed that the pace of human progress was uneven and often thwarted by ignorance, Yet he remained convinced that truth could not ultimately be suppressed. Ideas, once revealed, could not be erased. They would re-emerge in later generations if neglected in the present. In this way, Tesla saw himself as planting seeds for the future. Content with the knowledge that even if his own life ended in obscurity, the truths he had uncovered would eventually blossom. His faith in the inevitability of progress was not naive optimism, but a philosophical conviction that the universe itself tends toward the unfolding of its laws through human discovery. Tesla's reflections on the nature of light reveal how his technical discoveries were always tied to philosophical insights. He saw light not only as a physical phenomenon, but as a profound symbol of knowledge and life itself. To him, light was a messenger of the universe, carrying information and energy across space. His work on high-frequency currents and wireless transmission was inseparable from this larger meditation on illumination. Just as physical light revealed the contours of the material world, Tesla saw intellectual light as revealing the hidden structures of reality. The inventor, then, was a bearer of light, channeling illumination from the unseen into the visible realm. This connection between science and philosophy is also clear in Tesla's thoughts on the human brain. He often compared the brain to a receiver, an intricate device capable of tuning into universal energies. He believed that thoughts were not generated in isolation, but were impressions or signals from a greater field of consciousness. In this sense, creativity was less about creating something new and more about perceiving something that already exists in the ether. Tesla's ability to imagine detailed machines in his mind before building them stemmed from this conviction. He was not inventing in the ordinary sense, but perceiving eternal forms that awaited manifestation. This is a profoundly Platonic idea, transposed into the language of energy and physics.
Tesla also cultivated a disciplined relationship with his own body, seeing it as an instrument that had to be refined in order to properly serve the mind. He lived simply, often eating sparingly, avoiding stimulants, and keeping a strict routine. He believed that physical health was essential for intellectual clarity, and he saw the body's balance as analogous to the balance of circuits and energies in his machines. The body was not to be indulged, but to be attuned, just as one tunes a device to the right frequency. This ascetic philosophy reflects his broader view of human beings as vibrational entities who must align with universal harmony to fulfill their purpose. Tesla's philosophy of progress emphasized the inevitability of technological advancement, but he was also critical of the misuse of science. He warned that without ethical guidance, discoveries could become destructive. His ideas for wireless transmission, free energy, and global communication were framed as tools for uniting humanity. Yet he also recognized that human greed could corrupt such possibilities. This duality ran through his entire worldview. The universe offered abundance, but human short-sightedness often turned abundance into conflict. Tesla believed that only a higher sense of morality, cultivated through science and spirituality together, could prevent the misuse of invention. He frequently spoke about the interconnectedness of all life. Tesla was fascinated by the idea that the Earth itself was alive, vibrating, and resonating with energies that could be tapped into. He imagined humans as both products of and participants in this planetary symphony. To exploit the Earth irresponsibly, he believed, was to interfere with the very source of our vitality. His wireless power experiments, in which he used the planet itself as a conductor, were not only technical feats, but philosophical expressions of this oneness. In Tesla's thought, energy was never isolated, it was always relational, part of a universal web of connections binding matter, life, and consciousness. Tesla's vision of the future extended into communication as well as power. He foresaw a world where people could instantly connect across vast distances, sharing knowledge, images, and voices.
He predicted a global network that resembles what we now call the Internet decades before it was technically feasible. But for Tesla, this was not simply a prediction of gadgets, it was a philosophical statement about the destiny of humanity. He saw communication as the realization of our inherent unity, the externalization of the inner truth that all minds are already connected through the universal field of thought. To build networks of communication was, in his eyes, to manifest this deeper metaphysical unity. Tesla's philosophy also carried a strong aesthetic dimension. He found beauty in the symmetry of natural laws, in the elegance of mathematical relationships, and in the harmony of electrical systems. For him, invention was not just utilitarian, but artistic. A well-designed machine was beautiful because it expressed the order of the cosmos. He admired nature not merely for its utility, but for its perfect design, and he sought to mirror that perfection in his inventions. This union of science and art reflects his conviction that truth, goodness, and beauty are not separate realms, but aspects of the same universal order. Tesla also spoke of the role of women in society with a mixture of admiration and concern. He predicted that women would rise to positions of equality and leadership, reshaping civilization. He believed that intellectual and spiritual qualities, not physical force, would determine the future of humanity, and in this realm, women would excel. Yet his own personal life remained distant from intimacy, as though his philosophical devotion to the universal left little room for individual attachments. His thoughts on gender reflect his broader conviction that the evolution of humanity is toward greater harmony, balance, and the transcendence of older conflict-driven models of power. His approach to work itself was a philosophy. Tesla believed that true invention came from a state of inner focus, bordering on meditation. He would immerse himself in thought experiments for hours, even days, without writing anything down. To others, this appeared eccentric, but for Tesla, it was the only way to access the pure forms of invention. He trusted the mind's ability to simulate reality with precision, and his inventions often worked exactly as he had envisioned them when finally built. This philosophy of inner experimentation suggests that the boundaries between imagination and reality are porous, that what the mind conceives can, under the right conditions, be realized in the external world.
Tesla's meditations on time are equally profound. He saw time not as a linear progression, but as a dimension interwoven with energy and vibration. His experiments with high-frequency currents and resonance led him to speculate about the possibility of accessing different layers of reality, even different timelines. While he never fully developed a scientific theory of time travel, his philosophical reflections hinted at a universe in which past, present, and future coexist in a vast energetic field. This view reinforced his sense of destiny, that his own life's work, even if unrecognized in the present, was already part of the future that would inevitably unfold. Tesla's personal discipline extended to his emotional life. He deliberately avoided attachments that might distract him from his work. He saw romantic love as a force that could consume energy better devoted to invention. His celibacy was not merely personal eccentricity, but a philosophical stance, a belief that his life belonged to humanity and to the cosmos rather than to individual relationships. This decision, while isolating, also gave him the clarity and focus that enabled his remarkable productivity. His philosophy here was austere, even severe, but it was consistent with his conviction that genius required total dedication to the universal mission of discovery. He often described himself as a receiver of visions, flashes of inspiration that came to him suddenly and vividly. He would see entire machines in his mind, sometimes accompanied by intense light. These experiences were not, for Tesla, hallucinations or fantasies, but communications from the deeper structure of reality. His philosophy of inspiration was that the human mind, when attuned, could access realms of knowledge beyond ordinary consciousness. This conviction placed him closer to mystics than to conventional scientists. Yet he always grounded his visions in rigorous technical detail.
For Tesla, the mystical and the mechanical were not opposites, but complements. Tesla's reflections on morality were tied to his larger vision of cosmic harmony. He believed that ethical behavior arose naturally when one recognized the interconnectedness of all life. To harm another was not only immoral but irrational, for it disrupted the balance of the whole. Compassion, generosity, and selflessness were not optional virtues, but necessities for aligning with universal law. Tesla's own life of sacrifice, in which he gave away opportunities for wealth and comfort, was an enactment of this moral philosophy. He saw himself as a servant of humanity, and he measured his success not in terms of personal fortune, but in terms of contributions to human progress. Tesla's thoughts on cosmic order extended beyond Earth to the stars. He believed that humanity was destined to explore and eventually inhabit other planets, and he saw this not as conquest, but as expansion of consciousness. He speculated that Mars and other celestial bodies might already harbor intelligent life, and he considered the possibility that communication with extraterrestrial beings was achievable through the universal language of frequency. His experiments with radio signals, which he once believed might have picked up transmissions from Mars, were framed not as curiosities, but as signs that the universe was alive with intelligence. For Tesla, the cosmos was a community of minds and energies awaiting our participation. His philosophy of invention carried a strong element of destiny. Tesla believed that ideas came to him because they were ready to enter the world. He often spoke of being compelled to invent, as though he were an instrument of a higher will. This conviction gave his work a sense of inevitability. He did not see himself as competing with others, but as carrying out a mission assigned by the universe. The failures and betrayals he endured in his career did not shake this faith, for he believed that truth could not ultimately be suppressed. Even if his projects were abandoned or ridiculed, the principles they embodied would resurface when the world was ready. Tesla's reflections on economics reveal his disdain for systems that reduced human life to profit and loss. He argued that true wealth lay in knowledge and energy, not in money. A society obsessed with financial gain, he believed, would inevitably sabotage its own progress by neglecting discoveries that did not promise immediate profit. This short-sightedness, in his view, explained why his most ambitious ideas were neglected. Yet Tesla never lost faith that a more enlightened society would eventually recognize the futility of greed and embrace inventions for their intrinsic value to humanity. In this sense, his philosophy of economics was prophetic, anticipating critiques of capitalism that would later emerge in the 20th and 21st centuries.
Tesla also had a profound sense of rhythm in the universe. He observed cycles in natural phenomena, tides, seasons, magnetic variations, and saw them as expressions of a deeper law of oscillation. His alternating current system reflected this philosophy, embodying the principle that energy flows most efficiently when it follows natural rhythms of reversal and balance. For Tesla, rhythm was not merely a feature of machines, but a cosmic principle. Human life, too, had defined its rhythm, balancing work and rest, solitude and engagement, thought and action. His own life, marked by strict routines, reflected this commitment to living in tune with cosmic oscillations. Tesla's view of knowledge was holistic rather than fragmented. He resisted the compartmentalization of science into narrow disciplines, arguing that truth could only be grasped by seeing connections across fields. This is why his work spanned electricity, magnetism, mechanics, radio, and even biology. He sought patterns that unified these domains, convinced that all were aspects of the same universal energy. His holistic philosophy challenged the increasingly specialized direction of modern science, suggesting instead that true breakthroughs required integration, not fragmentation. In this sense, Tesla was less a scientist in the modern professional sense and more a natural philosopher in the ancient tradition. Tesla's reflections on spirituality often drew upon Eastern as well as Western ideas, though he rarely cited them explicitly.
His emphasis on vibration and frequency resonates with traditions that see the universe as sound or energy in motion. His belief in the oneness of all life echoes mystical teachings about the unity of being. Yet Tesla always translated these ideas into the language of physics, grounding them in experiments and inventions. His spirituality was not an escape from science, but its deepest expression. He envisioned a science that would one day reveal the soul, not as a superstition, but as a fundamental energy form within the universe. Tesla's life of sacrifice can be read as a philosophical experiment in itself. He chose poverty over compromise, solitude over comfort, obscurity over recognition, because he believed that fidelity to truth was more important than worldly success. This choice reflected his conviction that the value of a life lay not in what it acquired, but in what it contributed. To live in harmony with universal law was, for Tesla, the only true measure of greatness. His life, though tragic in many respects, was a testimony to this philosophy. He remained faithful to his vision, even when abandoned by patrons and ridiculed by rivals, embodying the principle that truth must be pursued regardless of cost. Tesla also developed a philosophy of resilience. He endured repeated failures, betrayals, and disappointments, yet he continued to invent and imagine. His resilience was not rooted in optimism, but in metaphysical conviction. He believed that he was a channel for ideas that belonged to the universe, and therefore his task was simply to keep working. Whether or not the world accepted his inventions was secondary. This philosophy of resilience offers a profound lesson, that one's duty is to truth, not to recognition, and that perseverance in service of a higher vision is itself a form of victory. His thoughts on education reflected his belief in imagination as the highest faculty of the mind. Tesla criticized rote learning and mechanical repetition, arguing that education should cultivate the ability to visualize, to create, and to think independently. He himself had trained his mind through visualization exercises, and he believed that every person could develop similar powers if properly guided. For Tesla, education was not about filling the mind with facts, but about training it to perceive patterns and possibilities. In this view, the true purpose of education was liberation, not conformity. Tesla's philosophy also encompassed a critique of violence against nature. He condemned hunting, meat-eating, and exploitation of animals, seeing them as signs of humanity's failure to recognize its unity with life. He believed that the future of humanity depended on compassion toward all beings. His vegetarianism was not merely a dietary choice, but a moral philosophy, grounded in the conviction that cruelty disrupted the harmony of the universe. He predicted that humanity would eventually abandon meat-eating, not only for health reasons, but as a natural evolution of its moral consciousness. In this sense, Tesla's philosophy anticipated modern debates about animal rights and environmental ethics.
Tesla's thoughts on death were consistent with his larger vision of energy. He believed that death was not annihilation, but transformation, a change of vibrational state. Just as energy could not be destroyed, but only converted, so too the essence of a human being continued beyond physical dissolution. He speculated that the soul might persist as a pattern of frequencies, capable of rejoining the universal field. Though he did not systematize these ideas into a formal doctrine, his reflections reveal a deep trust in the continuity of life beyond death. This conviction allowed him to face his own decline with dignity, knowing that his energy would re-enter the greater harmony of the cosmos. Tesla's later years, though marked by poverty and obscurity, were not devoid of philosophical productivity. He continued to reflect on the destiny of humanity, offering visions of a world transformed by energy, communication, and compassion. His interviews often revealed a prophetic tone, as though he were speaking not to his contemporaries, but to future generations. He foresaw a time when science would reconcile with spirituality, when inventions would liberate rather than enslave, and when humanity would recognize its unity with the cosmos. These reflections, though dismissed by some as the ramblings of an old man, were in fact the culmination of a lifelong philosophy rooted in the oneness of energy, life, and spirit.
Tesla's reflections on civilization reveal both his admiration for human ingenuity and his disappointment at its frequent misuse. He acknowledged that humanity had achieved remarkable feats, but he lamented that these were often guided by selfish motives rather than collective benefit. He argued that the greatest obstacle to progress was not the lack of intelligence, but the prevalence of greed, jealousy, and ignorance. These vices distorted the purpose of invention, turning tools of liberation into instruments of control. Tesla's philosophy thus framed civilization as a moral challenge. The problem was not whether humanity could discover new powers, but whether it could use them wisely. He often emphasized the principle of service as the foundation of greatness. For Tesla, a life devoted to personal gain was small and transient, but a life devoted to humanity was vast and enduring. He contrasted the pursuit of wealth with the pursuit of truth, arguing that only the latter aligned with universal law. This belief gave him a profound sense of purpose, even when his material circumstances were dire. Tesla measured his success not in possessions, but in the value his discoveries might bring to future generations. His philosophy of service was radical in a world increasingly dominated by industrial capitalism, and it continues to challenge the assumptions of modern society. Tesla's relationship with religion was complex. Though he rejected organized dogma, he embraced a deep spiritual outlook. He believed in a cosmic intelligence, a universal order that guided the unfolding of life. He saw this intelligence not as a personal deity, but as an impersonal force of harmony. In this sense, his philosophy was closer to pantheism than to traditional theism. Yet he respected religious traditions as symbolic attempts to express truths that science had not yet fully articulated. He believed that science and religion would one day converge, each illuminating the other, and that this union would reveal the true nature of existence. Tesla's meditation on creativity reveals his belief that invention is less about effort and more about attunement. He argued that inspiration comes in moments of clarity, when the mind is silent and receptive. He described these experiences as sudden illuminations, often accompanied by intense light. This suggests that Tesla viewed creativity as a form of revelation, in which the individual becomes a channel for universal truth. His disciplined solitude, his ascetic habits, and his commitment to visualization were all methods for cultivating this receptivity. In Tesla's philosophy, invention was not primarily a product of labor, but of resonance with the cosmos. He also considered the role of suffering in human development. Though he endured much hardship, he saw adversity as a test of fidelity to truth. He argued that suffering purifies ambition, stripping away superficial motives and revealing one's true purpose. His own life bore witness to this philosophy, as he endured poverty and rejection without abandoning his mission. Tesla's reflections suggest that suffering is not an obstacle, but a catalyst for higher growth, provided it is endured with vision. This view transforms hardship into a philosophical necessity, a crucible in which genius and virtue are forged.
Tesla's ecological awareness extended to his vision of technology. He believed that machines should imitate nature, not oppose it. He admired the efficiency of natural processes and sought to design systems that reflected their elegance. His idea of harnessing renewable energy sources, water, wind, and the Earth's natural vibrations, was part of this philosophy. He condemned the wastefulness of burning fuel, arguing that it was primitive compared to the possibilities of clean energy. Tesla's ecological philosophy thus combined admiration for nature with confidence in human ingenuity, envisioning a future in which technology amplified rather than destroyed the harmony of the planet. Tesla's understanding of harmony also applied to human society. He believed that conflict arose when individuals or groups acted out of tune with the universal order. Greed, aggression, and domination were distortions of natural law, producing discord rather than balance. The solution was not force, but alignment, achieved through knowledge and compassion. He believed that education, science, and moral development could guide humanity toward this harmony. His ideal society was one in which energy was freely available, knowledge was widely shared, and human beings were liberated from material struggle to pursue intellectual and spiritual growth. Tesla's philosophy of history was cyclical rather than linear. He saw civilizations rise and fall, driven by their capacity or failure to align with natural law. He believed that technological discoveries could elevate humanity, but only if accompanied by moral development. Otherwise, civilizations would collapse under the weight of their own misuse of power. This cyclical view gave Tesla a sober perspective on his own era. He saw the potential for both unprecedented progress and catastrophic decline. Yet, he retained faith that the larger arc of history bent toward harmony, as truth could not ultimately be suppressed. Tesla often reflected on the nature of genius. He denied that genius was a personal possession, insisting instead that it was the result of tuning in to universal energies. He argued that anyone could cultivate this ability with discipline and imagination. His own life was proof that genius was less about innate talent and more about commitment to truth. This philosophy democratized creativity, suggesting that the extraordinary was within reach of anyone who learned to listen to the universe. Genius, in Tesla's view, was not elitist, but universal, a potential waiting to be realized. Tesla's thoughts on aging and decline reveal his refusal to accept limits. He continued to work and imagine new inventions well into his old age, even when his body weakened. He believed that the mind remained capable of growth and insight regardless of physical condition. This conviction reflects his philosophy that consciousness is not bound by the body, but participates in the universal field of energy. For Tesla, aging was not an end, but a transition, and he faced it with the same curiosity he applied to all aspects of existence. His resilience in old age exemplified his belief that the spirit remained indestructible. Tesla's reflections on beauty reveal a deeply aesthetic philosophy. He believed that beauty was not merely subjective, but a reflection of universal harmony. He found beauty in equations, in the symmetry of machines, in the patterns of nature. For Tesla, beauty was evidence of truth, a sign that one was aligned with the cosmos. His own inventions, often elegant in form as well as function, embodied this conviction. He believed that beauty inspired the human spirit, lifting it beyond mere survival to contemplation of the infinite. This philosophy unites science, art, and morality in a single vision of harmony. Tesla's final years, though lonely, were filled with reflections that reveal the core of his philosophy. He spoke of the interconnectedness of all things, the inevitability of human progress, and the necessity of compassion. He predicted that humanity would one day master energy to such a degree that scarcity would be abolished, and with it, war and conflict. He foresaw a world where communication was instantaneous, where machines performed labor, and where humans devoted themselves to knowledge and creativity. Though his material circumstances were bleak, his vision remained expansive, rooted in his unshakable faith in the power of truth. Tesla's reflections on war reveal his profound conviction that violence was both unnecessary and self-destructive. He viewed war as a failure of imagination, a symptom of humanity's inability to apply its intelligence towards peaceful ends. He predicted that the development of new technologies would eventually make large-scale conflict obsolete, not because of treaties or politics, but because the destructive capacity of weapons would render war suicidal. Yet, he hoped that humanity would avoid this path by embracing energy abundance and mutual cooperation before reaching such extremes. For Tesla, the true victory was not military conquest, but the elimination of the causes of war through knowledge and shared prosperity.
Tesla also considered the psychology of invention. He observed that most inventors fell into one of two categories: those who copied and refined existing ideas, and those who leaped into entirely new domains. He placed himself in the second category, identifying his role as a pioneer rather than a builder. He argued that both roles were necessary, but that pioneers carried the burden of misunderstanding and resistance. His philosophy of invention thus acknowledged the loneliness of original thinkers, who often labored without recognition while laying foundations for future generations. He accepted this burden as part of his destiny, regarding it as the price of being a conduit for truth. Tesla's interest in communication technologies reflected his broader philosophy of interconnectedness. He envisioned a global wireless system that would not only transmit messages, but also images, music, and knowledge to every corner of the Earth. He believed this would unite humanity, dissolving ignorance and prejudice by creating a shared cultural space. His vision anticipated the internet, satellite communication, and wireless data transfer, all grounded in his conviction that knowledge was the most powerful force for peace. He believed that when information flowed freely, barriers between people would collapse, and humanity would awaken to its unity. Tesla's reflections on wealth were radical for his time. He rejected the accumulation of money as a primary goal, seeing it as a distraction from true service. He criticized the industrial magnates of his era who hoarded wealth while millions lived in poverty. For Tesla, wealth was justified only insofar as it enabled service to humanity. He believed that hoarded riches would eventually become obsolete, as technology would make material abundance available to all. His philosophy foresaw a post-scarcity society, in which money itself might dissolve as a measure of value, replaced by knowledge, creativity, and harmony. Tesla's writings reveal his unique perspective on the relationship between the human mind and the universe. He believed that thoughts were not generated within the brain, but were instead part of a universal field of ideas. The brain, in his view, acted as a receiver, tuning into vibrations of thought that already existed. This philosophy, blending science and mysticism, framed creativity as a matter of resonance rather than originality. Tesla often described receiving sudden visions or complete solutions to problems as though they had been transmitted to him. This belief in the universality of thought reinforced his conviction that knowledge belonged to all humanity. Tesla's fascination with light reflects both his scientific and philosophical depth. He studied light not only as a physical phenomenon, but as a symbol of truth and illumination. He believed that understanding light would unlock the mysteries of both matter and consciousness. He speculated about forms of energy beyond visible light, hinting at dimensions of reality that science had yet to uncover. For Tesla, light represented the bridge between the material and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. His obsession with harnessing radiant energy was both practical and metaphysical, reflecting his conviction that light was the ultimate medium of knowledge. Tesla often reflected on time, not merely as a scientific concept, but as a philosophical mystery. He speculated that time might not flow linearly, and that the past, present, and future could coexist in a single continuum. He believed that energy and information could transcend temporal boundaries, suggesting the possibility of communication across time. While his ideas stretched beyond empirical science, they revealed his openness to dimensions of reality beyond conventional understanding. Time, in Tesla's philosophy, was not a prison, but a veil, and science would one day pierce it. This conviction illustrates his broader vision, that all limits were temporary illusions. Tesla's philosophy of freedom was deeply tied to his understanding of energy. He argued that true freedom could only be achieved when humanity had access to unlimited, clean energy. As long as people were dependent on scarce and costly resources, they would remain subject to exploitation and control. His vision of wireless power distribution was not merely technical, but ethical. He wanted to liberate humanity from the chains of necessity. In Tesla's philosophy, energy was synonymous with liberty, and the task of science was to ensure that liberty was universally shared.
Tesla's reflections on animals reveal his belief in the unity of life. He often expressed compassion for creatures, rejecting the idea that humans had the right to exploit them. He viewed animals as fellow participants in the universal symphony of life, deserving of respect and kindness. His vegetarianism was both a health choice and a moral stance, rooted in his conviction that harmony required minimizing suffering. Tesla believed that as humanity evolved, it would abandon cruelty to animals, recognizing them as companions rather than resources. This ecological and ethical sensitivity was far ahead of his time, foreshadowing modern discussions of animal rights. Tesla's view of death was serene and philosophical. He rejected the idea of annihilation, insisting that consciousness was part of a universal continuum that could not be destroyed. He compared death to a change of frequency, a shift of vibration that transformed but did not erase existence. This belief gave him courage in the face of mortality, allowing him to devote his life to service without fear of personal loss. He regarded death as a natural process, a return of individual energy to the cosmic whole. In Tesla's philosophy, immortality was not personal, but universal, expressed through the eternal unfolding of life and truth. Tesla's reflections on solitude reveal his conviction that true insight requires withdrawal from distraction. He valued silence and solitude as essential conditions for creativity. While many feared loneliness, Tesla embraced it as a source of strength. He believed that only in solitude could one hear the subtle vibrations of the universe. His life, often marked by isolation, was therefore not a tragedy, but a deliberate choice, aligned with his philosophy of service. He argued that the greatest thinkers of history had always sought solitude, not out of misanthropy, but as a means of tuning in to higher truths. Tesla's final reflections, often recorded in interviews, reveal a man who, though materially impoverished, remained spiritually rich. He spoke of birds as his companions, of the beauty of the sun's rays, and of the eternal mystery of life. He continued to dream of inventions that might never be built, not as regrets, but as offerings to the future. His philosophy was thus not bound to his personal success, but extended into the infinite, carried by the conviction that truth cannot perish. Even in his final days, Tesla embodied his belief that the true wealth of life lay in imagination, service, and harmony with the universe. Tesla's understanding of progress was not tied to the accumulation of luxury or the endless pursuit of consumption, but to the refinement of human consciousness. He believed that society measured progress incorrectly, mistaking material excess for advancement, when in reality, true progress was the reduction of unnecessary effort and the expansion of intellectual clarity. A society burdened by endless labor, pollution, and conflict could not call itself advanced, no matter how many machines it produced. For Tesla, real progress was measured by how freely the human mind could create, imagine, and live without the chains of want or fear. This was why his vision of free energy was not simply technological, it was moral, a liberation of human potential from servitude. Tesla often criticized blind adherence to tradition when it stifled discovery. He argued that reverence for the past should never prevent the pursuit of truth in the present.
Yet he also respected the wisdom embedded in ancient cultures, believing that early civilizations had glimpsed profound truths about energy, harmony, and the cosmos. He speculated that ancient builders had knowledge of natural forces lost to modern science, and he felt a kinship with their search for universal principles. His philosophy thus integrated respect for ancient wisdom with a fearless push towards future innovation, creating a bridge between what was remembered and what was yet to be discovered. Tesla's reflections on imagination reveal his conviction that all invention begins in the mind's inner theater. He claimed that he could build machines entirely in his imagination, running them for days, observing their wear and perfecting their design without ever touching a piece of metal. For him, imagination was not fantasy, but the true workshop of reality, where form and function first emerged. He argued that the power of visualization was humanity's greatest gift, a force capable of shaping the world. His philosophy elevated imagination to the highest rank of faculties, declaring it more important than knowledge, for knowledge could only describe what was, while imagination revealed what could be.
Tesla also spoke about the role of beauty in science. He insisted that inventions must not only function, but must possess elegance, a harmony of design that reflected universal order. He considered beauty a sign of truth, believing that the universe itself operated on principles of symmetry and proportion. A machine that was clumsy or awkward in design, he suggested, was unlikely to endure, while one that embodied elegance would stand the test of time. This philosophy infused his work with an almost artistic quality, as though each invention were a sculpture of energy. To Tesla, science and art were not separate, but complementary expressions of the same cosmic harmony. Tesla's critique of greed was relentless. He regarded the obsession with profit as the greatest obstacle to human advancement. He warned that corporations and financiers who sought short-term gain would strangle innovations that could benefit all humanity. His own struggles with investors who withdrew support when his inventions threatened existing industries reinforced this conviction. Tesla's philosophy condemned greed as not merely a personal vice, but a systemic disease that corrupted society's priorities. He envisioned a future where inventions were pursued for service rather than profit, where knowledge was shared freely, and where the pursuit of wealth no longer dictated the fate of discovery. Tesla's thoughts on education reveal his frustration with methods that stifled creativity. He criticized rote memorization and rigid curricula, arguing that education should cultivate imagination and curiosity rather than conformity. He believed children should be encouraged to explore, to build, and to dream, rather than being forced into narrow molds. His own childhood experiences, filled with experimentation and imaginative play, convinced him that creativity was the seed of true learning. Tesla's philosophy of education anticipated modern calls for experiential and inquiry-based learning, where the goal is not the accumulation of facts, but the awakening of the mind's capacity to see connections and possibilities. Tesla often reflected on the ethics of invention. He argued that inventors bore responsibility for how their creations were used, even if they could not control those uses. While he recognized that discovery often had both constructive and destructive potential, he believed inventors should guide their work towards service and peace. He lamented that many of his contemporaries sought only military or commercial applications, ignoring the higher purpose of science. Tesla's own career, marked by financial struggle, reflected his refusal to compromise on this principle. Tesla's philosophy of invention thus called for moral courage, demanding that scientists serve humanity rather than power or profit.
Tesla's reflections on the cosmos reveal a man who saw the universe as alive with intelligence. He believed that the Earth itself was a living organism, pulsing with energy and resonating with cosmic vibrations. He speculated about communication with other planets, not merely as a scientific possibility, but as a natural extension of the universe's interconnectedness. For Tesla, the cosmos was not a void, but a symphony, and humanity's role was to learn its music. His belief in extraterrestrial life was not driven by fantasy, but by a philosophical conviction that the universe, abundant and harmonious, could not be barren of other consciousness. Tesla also considered the nature of genius. He rejected the idea that genius was a personal possession, instead describing it as a form of resonance with universal truth. The individual inventor, in his view, was less a creator than a receiver, attuned to patterns that others overlooked. This humility marked his philosophy. Though he produced world-changing inventions, he saw himself as a servant of forces larger than himself. Genius for Tesla was not about intellect alone, but about purity of intention and alignment with the universal good. A selfish or corrupt mind, he argued, could never truly resonate with the highest truths. Tesla's philosophy of harmony extended to his view of society. He believed that human communities should function like the parts of a machine, each contributing to the whole in balanced proportion. Disorder, selfishness, and exploitation disrupted this harmony, just as a defective gear disrupted the operation of an engine. His political philosophy leaned toward a meritocratic ideal, where individuals would be valued not for wealth or status, but for their contributions to the common good. Yet, he distrusted centralized power, fearing that it could stifle creativity. His ideal society was one where free individuals collaborated harmoniously, guided by shared access to energy and knowledge.
Tesla's reflections on health reveal how deeply he connected the body and the mind to energy. He maintained strict routines of diet, exercise, and rest, not out of vanity, but because he believed the body was an instrument for channeling creative force. He emphasized moderation, clean habits, and the avoidance of excess, arguing that clarity of thought required purity of living. His vegetarian tendencies, abstinence from stimulants, and disciplined sleep cycles were all expressions of this philosophy. He insisted that the mind could not operate at its highest potential if the body was dulled by indulgence or neglect. For Tesla, health was not merely personal, but philosophical, a condition for service to humanity. Tesla's philosophy of service extended to his view of fame and recognition. Though he enjoyed moments of celebrity, he often dismissed public admiration as fleeting and irrelevant. He argued that the worth of an invention lay not in its recognition, but in its usefulness to humanity. Praise, he believed, could easily corrupt, leading inventors to seek attention rather than truth. He himself was often misunderstood, mocked, or ignored, yet he remained steadfast in his mission. This humility reflected his conviction that invention was not about the inventor, but about the human community. Recognition, when it came, was incidental. Service was the true reward. Tesla's reflections on nature reveal a deep reverence for the natural world. He often spoke of the beauty of waterfalls, forests, and mountains as sources of inspiration. He saw in natural forces not chaos but order, and he believed that science's task was to understand and harmonize with these forces rather than to dominate them. His projects to harness hydroelectric power, capture radiant energy, and distribute it without pollution were all expressions of this ecological philosophy. Long before modern environmentalism, Tesla understood that humanity's survival depended on aligning with nature rather than exploiting it. He foresaw that ignoring this principle would lead to catastrophe. Tesla's insights into creativity show his recognition of the subconscious mind as a source of inspiration.
He often described how solutions came to him spontaneously after long periods of incubation. He valued intuition as much as logic, insisting that the most important discoveries emerged not from step-by-step reasoning, but from sudden illumination. He believed that these flashes of insight were the result of aligning one's mind with universal patterns, which required patience, solitude, and openness. His philosophy of creativity emphasized receptivity over control, teaching that the mind must listen before it can invent. Tesla's relationship with failure was philosophical rather than personal. He viewed setbacks not as defeats, but as necessary stages of discovery. When a machine failed, he studied the failure as carefully as a success, extracting lessons and adjusting his vision. He believed that no true progress could occur without error, for mistakes revealed the boundaries of understanding. Tesla's acceptance of failure was rooted in his conviction that truth was inevitable. Each misstep was merely a redirection toward the correct path. This philosophy freed him from despair, allowing him to persevere through decades of difficulty with unshaken resolve. Tesla also reflected on the responsibility of science to guide morality. He argued that ethical systems divorced from knowledge were fragile, while knowledge without ethics was dangerous. He saw science and morality as interdependent, each shaping the other in a cycle of progress. For Tesla, the role of the scientist was not only to expand knowledge, but also to elevate humanity's moral vision. Inventions that degraded the human spirit, no matter how profitable, were to be rejected. His own refusal to develop certain weapons reflected this principle. He placed moral responsibility above technological curiosity. Tesla's philosophy of abundance challenged the prevailing economic systems of his time. He insisted that scarcity was an artificial condition, sustained by ignorance and greed. Nature, he argued, provided energy in limitless quantities, through the sun, wind, water, and the earth itself. Humanity's task was to learn how to access this abundance without destruction. He envisioned a future where poverty would vanish, not through charity, but through the intelligent application of science. This philosophy stood in stark contrast to capitalist models that thrived on competition and scarcity. Tesla believed that once abundance was revealed, cooperation would replace conflict as the basis of society.
Tesla's reflections on the spirit of humanity were infused with optimism, despite his personal hardships. He believed that, though individuals often erred, humanity as a whole moved toward greater wisdom. Each generation, he argued, inherited not only knowledge, but also a moral impulse to improve. He compared humanity to a child, stumbling and erring, but slowly learning to walk upright. Even the horrors of war and greed did not shake his conviction that the long arc of history bent toward enlightenment. His philosophy was therefore one of faith, not faith in institutions, but faith in the innate capacity of the human spirit to grow. Tesla's perspective on religion was complex. While he respected the moral teachings of spiritual traditions, he distrusted dogma and ritual. He believed that true spirituality lay in understanding the harmony of the universe, not in blind adherence to authority. He described himself as deeply religious in a universal sense, seeing God not as a personal being, but as the intelligence that governed the cosmos. His philosophy thus united science and spirituality, rejecting the conflict between them. For Tesla, to study the laws of nature was to participate in the divine, and to serve humanity through science was the highest form of worship. Tesla's reflections on destiny reveal his sense of being chosen for a unique mission. He often described his inventions as visions that compelled him, leaving him no choice but to pursue them. He believed that each person had a role to play in the cosmic order, a thread in the universal tapestry. For him,
Destiny was not about fame or fortune, but about alignment with purpose. His willingness to endure poverty, ridicule, and isolation reflects this philosophy. He saw his life as an offering, a necessary sacrifice for the advancement of humanity. In this sense, Tesla lived his philosophy with absolute fidelity, embodying the very service he preached. Tesla's philosophy of communication extended beyond technology into the realm of human relationships. He often lamented how people spoke much but listened little, how conversations were filled with noise rather than true exchange. Just as his wireless visions sought to connect humanity through invisible signals, he believed individuals should cultivate deeper forms of understanding in their personal interactions. He insisted that real communication required silence, attention, and harmony, mirroring the resonance of natural forces. To Tesla, miscommunication was not merely a social inconvenience, but a fundamental barrier to human progress, for it prevented the cooperation needed to unlock collective potential. Tesla's reflections on cities reveal his vision of an urban future unlike the industrial chaos of his time. He imagined cities powered by clean, wireless energy, free of smoke and pollution, illuminated by efficient lighting, and connected by silent electric transport. He saw cities as potential embodiments of harmony, where science could shape environments that nurtured health and creativity rather than degrading them. His philosophy of the city was rooted in balance. Technology was not to overwhelm human life, but to enhance it. For Tesla, the city of the future would be a living organism, sustainable and interconnected, reflecting humanity's higher order. Tesla's approach to problem-solving reveals his insistence on simplicity. He argued that nature itself operated with economy, achieving vast results with minimal means. He believed that the greatest inventions followed this principle, stripping away excess to reveal the pure essence of function. This was why he rejected overly complicated machines, insisting that elegance and efficiency were signs of alignment with universal truth. To Tesla, the closer an invention came to nature's simplicity, the more enduring it would be. Tesla's reflections on memory highlight his extraordinary ability to recall details with precision. He claimed that his mind could store entire books, diagrams, and experiments, retrieving them years later as though freshly encountered. Yet he viewed memory not as a personal gift, but as evidence of the brain's deeper capacity to resonate with universal knowledge. He believed that human memory was not isolated within the skull, but was part of a greater continuum of thought. His philosophy of memory thus linked the individual mind to the cosmos, suggesting that what we remember may in fact be echoes of truths stored beyond ourselves.
Tesla's philosophy of innovation warned against blind acceleration. While he celebrated discovery, he also cautioned that humanity must pace itself, integrating each advance responsibly before rushing to the next. He observed that societies often introduce technologies without fully grasping their consequences, leading to exploitation or harm. For Tesla, true innovation was not measured by speed, but by wisdom, ensuring that each step elevated humanity rather than enslaving it. He argued that the reckless pursuit of novelty without reflection betrayed the very purpose of science. In his philosophy, invention must be deliberate, guided by ethics and foresight. Tesla's reflections on electricity extended beyond mechanics into metaphysics. He believed that electrical energy was not merely a physical phenomenon, but a manifestation of universal life. He speculated that electricity might be the very breath of the cosmos, animating all things. This belief infused his experiments with a sense of sacred duty, as though he were uncovering the hidden pulse of creation. For Tesla, to study electricity was to study existence itself.
His philosophy of energy blurred the line between science and spirituality, treating power not only as a force to be harnessed, but also as a window into the mystery of being. Tesla's philosophy of human potential emphasized discipline as much as inspiration. He acknowledged that while visions and flashes of insight were crucial, they were meaningless without tireless labor. He described how he worked long hours, often to exhaustion, refining each idea until it was perfected. Yet he never regarded this labor as drudgery. It was the joyful expression of service to humanity. His philosophy thus united imagination with discipline, insisting that genius was not merely the capacity to dream, but the courage to persist. He argued that humanity's greatest limitation was not lack of ideas, but lack of perseverance. Tesla's reflections on the future of energy reveal his profound confidence that the Earth contained boundless resources. He believed that humanity would one day tap into the very fabric of space, drawing power directly from the ether. Though mainstream science later dismissed the ether, Tesla's vision anticipated the search for zero-point energy and quantum fields. His conviction was that the universe itself was a reservoir of infinite power, waiting only for understanding. He predicted that future generations would laugh at the idea of burning fuel for energy, regarding it as primitive and wasteful. His philosophy of energy was, at its core, a philosophy of abundance. Tesla's thoughts on equality reveal his belief that access to energy and knowledge would dissolve social hierarchies. He argued that poverty was not the result of laziness or fate, but of systemic barriers to resources. By providing free energy and universal communication, Tesla envisioned a world where every individual had the tools to contribute their genius. He believed that when basic needs were universally met, creativity would flourish and society would advance collectively. His philosophy of equality was therefore practical rather than ideological. Eliminate scarcity, and justice would follow. He foresaw a time when wealth and class would fade into irrelevance. Tesla's reflections on resilience illuminate his ability to endure hardship without surrendering his vision. He lived much of his later life in obscurity and poverty, yet he continued to dream of inventions that might never be realized in his lifetime. He accepted disappointment without bitterness, insisting that truth would eventually prevail. This resilience was rooted in his philosophy of service. Since his mission was not personal gain, but humanity's progress, failure could not defeat him. Each setback was only temporary, for the ideas themselves would endure. Tesla's life thus became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit when aligned with purpose. Tesla's philosophy of responsibility extended not only to inventors, but to all individuals. He argued that each person was entrusted with unique talents, and that failing to develop and share those gifts was a form of betrayal against humanity. Just as he felt compelled to pursue his visions regardless of personal cost, he believed that every individual had a duty to cultivate their abilities for the greater good. This conviction framed life as a moral mission rather than a private endeavor. To Tesla, existence itself demanded responsibility, for each soul was a conduit of universal potential, and to squander that potential was to diminish the collective whole.
Tesla's reflections on ethics often circled back to truth as the highest value. He argued that deception, whether in science, business, or personal life, corrupted the very foundations of progress. Falsehood distorted understanding, wasted effort, and undermined trust. He regarded honesty not as a social convention, but as a natural law, as essential to harmony as the principles of physics. Invention built on lies, he warned, would eventually collapse, while truth endured eternally. Tesla's own refusal to exaggerate claims or compromise his principles, even when it cost him support, reflected this ethical philosophy. Truth, he insisted, was invincible, even if it required sacrifice. Tesla's philosophy of imagination as service extended to his understanding of art. He saw no sharp boundary between science and the arts, for both revealed unseen realities. He admired music, literature, and painting not as diversions, but as complementary paths to universal truth. He argued that the greatest works of art, like the greatest inventions, emerged from resonance with the cosmos. To him, Beethoven's symphonies or Michelangelo's sculptures were no less revelations of natural order than the principles of electromagnetism. Tesla's philosophy dissolved the false division between science and art, proposing that both were expressions of the same universal creativity. Tesla's reflections on solitude highlight his awareness of its dual edge. While he valued solitude as a condition for deep thought, he also acknowledged its cost in terms of companionship and comfort. He admitted that his devotion to discovery often left him isolated, misunderstood, and lonely. Yet he accepted this cost willingly, arguing that solitude was the crucible of truth. His philosophy suggests that while human beings are social creatures, the highest insights require withdrawal from the crowd. Solitude, though painful, was not barren. It was fertile with visions. For Tesla, the silence of solitude was filled with the music of the universe. Tesla's philosophy of hope was grounded not in circumstances but in vision. Even in the darkest moments of failure, poverty, or rejection, he spoke of the future with optimism. He believed that humanity's destiny was not destruction but enlightenment, and that science would one day solve the problems of hunger, disease, and war. His personal hardships never shook this conviction, for his hope was not for himself, but for humanity as a whole. This philosophy infused his life with resilience. No matter how he suffered, he remained a messenger of hope, a voice declaring that the dawn of a new age was inevitable. Tesla's philosophy of invention as revelation revealed his view of creativity as discovery rather than construction. He insisted that ideas already existed in the fabric of the universe, waiting for minds prepared to receive them. Inventors, then, were not creators in the ultimate sense, but discoverers of eternal truths. This philosophy filled him with humility, for he did not claim ownership of his ideas, but acknowledged them as universal. It also gave him confidence, for if truth was eternal, then its revelation was inevitable regardless of temporary resistance. His inventions were not his possessions, but his contributions to humanity's unfolding destiny. Tesla's philosophy of time and continuity reflected his belief that humanity was part of an unbroken stream of progress. He argued that each generation stood on the shoulders of the previous one, inheriting knowledge, refining it, and passing it forward. He saw himself as one link in this endless chain, not an isolated genius, but a participant in humanity's collective evolution. This perspective gave him both humility and purpose. Humility because he was not the first nor the last to seek truth. Purpose because his duty was to add his light to the continuum. For Tesla, progress was not personal glory, but collective inheritance.
Tesla's reflections on the unity of science and spirituality reveal his deepest convictions. He rejected the notion that science and faith were enemies, insisting instead that they sought the same truth through different means. Science revealed the laws of the visible world. Spirituality revealed the meaning behind them. He believed that as science advanced, it would confirm rather than deny the existence of higher intelligence. His own discoveries, uncovering hidden forces of energy, convinced him that reality was infused with order and purpose. For Tesla, the true scientist was also a mystic, and the true mystic was also a scientist. Both were servants of truth. Tesla's philosophy of legacy reveals his detachment from personal remembrance. He often said that it did not matter whether people remembered him, so long as his ideas endured. He understood that fame was fleeting, but truth eternal.
he was content to be forgotten if his work advanced humanity. This humility framed his life as a gift rather than a quest for immortality. In the end, Tesla's philosophy of legacy was not about statues or accolades, but about seeds planted in the soil of human progress. If future generations lived freer, healthier, and wiser, that was his true memorial. Tesla's final reflections in his later years, though tinged with melancholy, remained faithful to his philosophy. Surrounded by obscurity, he still spoke of inventions to come, of cosmic forces to be harnessed, of a humanity yet to awaken. He fed pigeons in New York parks, finding companionship in creatures others ignored, and in them he saw the same universal spark he had always revered. Though poor in possessions, he remained rich in vision, his mind still resonating with the symphony of the cosmos. His philosophy, lived to the end, was one of service, imagination, and unshakable faith in the boundless possibilities of the human spirit. Tesla's philosophy, when viewed as a whole, reveals itself as a unified vision of the universe, humanity, and the path forward. At its center lies the conviction that reality is one vast field of energy, endlessly circulating, shaping stars, shaping minds, shaping destinies. To him, existence was not a scattered chaos of disconnected parts, but a seamless order in which every phenomenon, from lightning in the sky to thought in the brain, shared a common root. This belief in unity fueled all his work, for he saw invention not as an act of control over nature, but as the unveiling of connections already present in the fabric of existence. He believed that to truly understand life, one had to see beyond appearances and grasp the invisible patterns that tied everything together. His philosophy of energy extended naturally into a philosophy of humanity. Tesla held that people were not separate from this universal current, but expressions of it, vessels through which energy flowed, translated into action, creativity, and progress. To live was to participate in the eternal circulation of power, and to waste one's potential was to interrupt the natural harmony of existence. He urged humanity to align itself with these deeper laws, for resistance to the flow of truth led only to suffering and collapse. The destiny of the species, he believed, depended on discovering and embracing the currents that bound us to the cosmos, allowing them to carry us forward toward enlightenment. His philosophy of imagination, often misinterpreted as eccentricity, in truth was a disciplined philosophy of vision. He maintained that imagination was not fantasy, but perception of realities not yet manifested. The mind, properly trained, could anticipate the future as clearly as the eye perceives the present. This philosophy transformed invention into prophecy, a way of touching the future before it arrived. To Tesla, imagination was the highest instrument of the human being, not because it created illusions, but because it revealed possibilities hidden from common sight. Through imagination, humanity could accelerate its evolution, not waiting passively for discovery, but leaping forward through insight. His philosophy of progress, therefore, was rooted in both science and ethics. Tesla did not believe in progress for its own sake, nor in the accumulation of knowledge without purpose. For him, progress meant the elevation of humanity, relief from suffering, expansion of freedom, and cultivation of wisdom. He denounced those who pursued knowledge merely for wealth or power, for such misuse of discovery betrayed the trust of the universe. Science was sacred to him because it served life. Any use of knowledge that enslaved, destroyed, or corrupted humanity was in violation of the natural order. Progress, then, was not neutral. It was a moral responsibility.
Tesla's reflections on war expose this conviction with clarity. He regarded conflict as the most catastrophic misuse of science, a perversion of humanity's greatest gifts. Every weapon built was, to him, an insult to the harmony of existence, an act of blindness that denied the true purpose of knowledge. He dreamed instead of a world where scientific power served only creation, never destruction. His visions of wireless energy, global communication, and limitless resources were all aimed at eliminating the causes of war: scarcity, ignorance, and division. His philosophy of peace was not naive. It was rooted in the understanding that only when humanity recognized its unity with the cosmos would conflict finally vanish. Tesla's philosophy of solitude completes the picture of his worldview. While he lived much of his life among people, he found his deepest truths in silence and isolation. Solitude was not absence for him, but presence. The presence of forces, ideas, and revelations too subtle for the noise of the crowd. He urged others to seek moments of solitude, for in them the mind could attune itself to the deeper harmonies of the universe. Though his solitude sometimes led to personal loneliness, he accepted it as the necessary price of vision. His life testifies to the paradox that one can be alone in body but never alone in spirit, for the cosmos is always speaking to those willing to listen. Tesla's philosophy of the future reflects his eternal optimism. Despite betrayal, poverty, and neglect, he never ceased to declare that humanity was destined for greatness. He foresaw cities powered by invisible energy, communication unhindered by distance, machines operating without fuel, and a civilization free from hunger and poverty. These were not dreams to him, but certainties, outcomes inscribed in the very laws of the universe. His optimism was not rooted in the present, but in the unfolding of truth. He knew that his own life might not witness this future, but he had no doubt that humanity eventually would, for truth could be delayed, but not denied. Tesla's philosophy of humility shines in his reflections on personal legacy. He often said that it did not matter whether his name endured, so long as his ideas lived on to serve humanity. He saw himself as a vessel, not an origin of the forces that shaped his discoveries. His humility was not false modesty, but genuine recognition of his place in the universal order. He did not consider himself a master of nature, but a servant of truth. This humility freed him from the anxieties of fame and recognition, for his concern was not for his own memory, but for the continuity of progress. To him, immortality was found not in statues, but in seeds of knowledge that grew long after the planter was gone. In the end, Tesla's philosophy was a philosophy of service. Every discovery, every vision, every sacrifice was guided by the belief that knowledge must serve humanity. He lived as though his mind were entrusted to him, not for private enjoyment, but for universal benefit. Even when misunderstood, even when deprived, he held to this conviction with unyielding faith. His life may have appeared tragic to some, ending in obscurity, but through the lens of his philosophy, it was triumph. For he fulfilled the mission he set for himself, to serve truth, to reveal possibilities, and to give without expecting return. To study Tesla's philosophy is to encounter a worldview in which science, ethics, imagination, and spirituality converge. It is to be reminded that knowledge is sacred, that creativity is service, and that humanity's destiny is unity with the cosmos. His words and inventions are not merely technical, but prophetic, calling us to rise above pettiness, greed, and division, and to live in harmony with the eternal currents of truth. Tesla's philosophy declares that the universe is alive with order, that humanity is capable of greatness, and that the future, though delayed, is radiant.
His vision continues to shine like lightning across the dark sky of history, illuminating paths we have yet to walk but must inevitably follow.